What's going on, guys? This is Martyrsbrigade99 coming to you once again with another session of Dark Souls PvP. Alright guys, this is a Rumble in the Jungle Volume 2. Now, if you guys are familiar with the channel, you guys would know that I did Volume 1 of the Rumble in the Jungle series with good old Short Dude, right? And he used, I believe, a Pyromancer. I can't really remember off the top of my head. This particular build will be dedicated to the use of the Havel's Ring. And actually, I love this particular series, mainly because I think his build is basically an answer to all those guys that are under the belief that you need the Darkwood, that the Darkwood Grain Ring is the only means by which a heavy build can have fast mobility. And that is not true. Right, I think the Havel's Ring is one of those rings that a lot of people ignore and they do not use. But, you know, when he told me about this particular build, I figured that I would do the same thing. Right, so if you guys notice, I have my medium armor. And I have a heavy addition to it. I'm using the black iron leggings. And I am also using the Havel's Ring. Now, ever since we've had this match, what I have tried to do personally is go through a lot of my melee builds, you know, the ones that do not require any type of faith or sorcery or pyromancies. I've tried to go to all of those builds and basically recreate them to where they're strictly fast rollers. Because, you know, the Darkwood Grain Ring is, you know, it's cool. You know, I've heard some people say that it has some type of invincibility frames and all like that. Well, I don't know. For a long time, I went without using it. Then, you know, I kind of started to experiment with my light and medium builds with it. But now I'm at the point to where, to the extent that I do not have to rely on any type of dexterity or sorceries or pyromancy, I'm going to change a lot of my builds to use the Havel's Ring with the fast roll. Now, some of you guys may say, well, dude, how in the world do you make room for anything else if you have a whole bunch of points pumped into Vitality? Well, actually, the particular build that I'm using now, I still have at least 1800 Vitality. Actually, I think I have like 1900, which is good. Right, especially when you're dealing with a lot of those heavy PvPers. Around 1800 is good. And actually 1500 is good if you're one of those hotshot guys, because I've seen a lot of people with only 1500 dominate in the PvP. Now, I kind of asked him about this build, and he told me that he had, I don't know, I think he said 50 something in endurance. I can't really remember. Actually, I stand corrected. I think he said he had 67 in endurance, whereas I have 50. And actually, I think I have 53 or 54. And that allows me to do the fast roll with, and actually I have a lot of weapons. So if you're just the type of person that deals with just a primary weapon, you wouldn't even have to go that far. Right? But me, I have the composite bow, I have the Silver Knight Spear, in addition to the Falcon. Right, so all of my 4 slots are full. So I really like this series. And actually, had he not kind of given me an idea about this particular build, would I have used the Havel's Ring and tried it myself? No. Because, I mean, I think any honest person will admit that most people do not think about the Havel's Ring when it comes to creating builds. Right? They just kind of say, you know what, why use the Havel's when I can use the Darkwood Grain Ring? Well, I mean, that's cool, but I really don't like it. You know, I use it, I like the fast mobility, but, you know, if I had a choice between the fast roll and the Darkwood Grain Ring, I would go the fast roll every time. Right. So, yeah. Now, let's kind of talk about his build. Positives and negatives. Now, we have demonstrated 2 versions of the build, even though they're both endurance-based builds. And this is why I say that. His relies heavily on on elemental weapons, and I believe he's using either the Fire Plus 10 or the Chaos elemental weapons. Me, on the other hand, because I am not using, the heaviest armor, I still have room for 40 dexterity. Right? So with regard to the medium builds, I think you still are able to put 40 into your dexterity, whereas the heavy builds, you might want to go ahead and use some of the elemental weapons, which in the brigade is not really a problem, because I don't know if I mentioned, but I created one of those type of builds myself, pretty much identical to his, because I really like the fast roll. In a lot of cases, I kind of want to rock the black iron set. I really like the way the black iron set looks. But, that medium roll, you're just kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. Now, granted, I've seen some guys dominate with the medium or even fat roll. As a matter of fact, one good example is good old Hell Servant 123. Shout out to him. He was kind of participating in a live stream. I don't really remember if it was his own or if it was another, but that guy had on like full black iron, Havel shield, and a Black Knight Great Axe, and that guy was killing everybody. Right? Now, I'm not saying he was invincible. Granted he lost, but the thing is, so many people took his fat rolling self for granted. Because think about it, anytime you see a Havel shield in addition to black iron set with a Black Knight Great Axe, it's kind of easy to say, okay, I'm going to dominate this guy. What is he really going to do? He can't fat roll. He can't fast roll. He can't do anything. But he really did a good service with that Black Knight Great Axe. Right, so it can be done. I'm just saying, as a matter of fact, I used to use the medium roll when I started doing uploads. Alright, so it can be done, but it definitely takes a lot of practice and good timing. So I really think that using an endurance build like this is an answer for all of those guys who think that you need to flip like a ninja. Now, let's kind of talk about some negatives with regard to the build. I think this build is good, and I don't even know if I touched on this, but in the event that I didn't, this build will not be good for a dexterity, faith combination, or sorcery combination. Mainly because a lot of the points that you would normally invest into, your faith, into your dexterity, not even dexterity, endurance rather. A lot of the points that you would normally invest in endurance for the fast roll, you would have to use for your faith or your sorceries. So this is why, if you're going to be using a caster build, more than likely you want to go ahead and use medium to light armor with the Darkwood Grain Ring. And I'm really trying my hardest to come up with a revolution of ideas. Now, what exactly do I mean by revolution of ideas? What I mean is to get a lot of people a little exposure into the idea that you really do not need the Darkwood Grain Ring for everything. Now, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying that no one should use it. But what I am saying is use a little more creativity. And this is why I really like this matchup between good old E-A-B-M and I, because I think he really uses creativity with regard to the fast rolling with the heavy build. Alright, so once again, I'd like to show my appreciation and give a shout out to good old E-A-B-M. I really like what he did with this heavy build. So yeah, alright, now if you guys notice, he's kind of whooping me up in my failed parry attempts. But it's all good, because anyone who kind of wants to get good at blind parrying, you're going to have a lot of failed attempts. And, for a lot of you guys that are familiar with my channel, you guys would know that I've kind of been practicing a lot more with the blind parries. Mainly because I'm pretty much good with the setup parries, but I am not all that hot with the blind parries. So actually, I don't know, I've been using this buckler for probably about a week now. And I've really come to like the buckler. and actually on, I don't know, 3 of the builds that I've been using lately. It's this particular character, a build similar to good old E-A-B-M's. I'm using a buckler slash target shield, and I think I created a pyro build where I'm using one of those 2 shields. I really like it. Now, granted, it doesn't have high stability. Granted, it doesn't have 100% physical damage reduction, nor does it have great defenses against sorceries or other type of castings. But at the end of the day, knowing this about this particular shield should allow me to, kind of improve on my evading, right? Because I can't just sit there and, take my shield stability for granted. I cannot do that because I will get slaughtered. Because as a matter of fact, I think one blocked attack, with probably a great sword, an ultra great sword, basically drains all of my stamina. Right? So with regard to the buckler and the target shield, you really have to, really get good with the parries. And I say that because you can't just sit there and take 3 blows like you could with, maybe a Baldur shield or a Crest shield or something like that. Some of those shields with more stability. Because as a matter of fact, I think the stability rating tops out at, probably about 50, maybe 51 or 52. Okay, my bad right there. I made a mistake and kind of hit him while he was grassing. That was intentional. So we're going to go ahead and start this match over. So yeah, I think the max stability, and I think is even with a plus 15 target or buckler, I think it only gives you like 51 or 53, no more than 55. I don't really know the stats off the top of my head. Alright. So as you guys can see, I'm basically using the same build that I used in the Just Another Day in the Berg series. I just changed up the armor so that I can do the fast roll. Alright, got a nice parry there. So I think for the most part what I'm going to do is the build that I use for the Just Another Day in the Berg series, although I really like it, I'm just going to delete it. Because now that I have a build that uses the fast roll, I really don't need the Darkwood Grain Ring. And that particular build did flip around like a ninja. Right, so it's going to be no more flipping around like a ninja with regard to my pure melee builds. Now, as I said before, those caster builds, I'm going to have to go ahead and use the Darkwood Grain Ring. But I'm going to be transitioning all of my builds to pure fast rolls. And actually, I hope I see a lot more fast rolls out there in the PvP world. Because you really do not need the Darkwood Grain Ring. Right now, once again, I'm not talking against it. I'm not talking against the people who use it. I'm just saying that, let's go ahead and try to give something else a try. Right? Pretty sure you'll enjoy it, and you'll realize that you can be just as effective with the fast roll as anybody could be with the Darkwood Grain Ring. Alright, so I think that's a long enough rant about the fast rolls versus the Darkwood Grain Ring ninja flipping. Alright, so he's got the high speed heater shield. And actually, if you guys, it's not in this series. I'm in another series where actually I'm using my heavy tank build, and I'm actually experimenting with a lot of weapons. Right, I'm using the black iron set, and I'll be using everything from the halberd to the battle axe to the dagger. I'm just kind of mixing it up with everything. And that video should be uploaded really soon. Now, one thing to keep in mind, you really have to be careful for that Baldur swag sword, because it's very dangerous. But at this point, I'm really trying to establish a pattern, because if you notice, he kept doing the R2 thrusting attack, which is why that particular sword is so dangerous. Right? In addition to it being fast swinging and offering decent amount of damage with the regular R1 attacks, that R2 attack is especially dangerous. And as a matter of fact, I've been able to inflict, somewhere around 500 damage before. And, obviously that depends upon the armor that the person is using. But, I mean, that R2 attack is definitely a force to be reckoned with. Alright, now, this is good old Consumer82. Okay, nice BS there, Consumer. He just so happened to be there when I was kind of going at it with E-A-B-M, so I just figured I'd include it because, unfortunately, one thing about kind of trying to PvP here in the forest, there's a lot of guys here who PvP. And a lot of times when they see or summon signs, a lot of times they just go ahead and pick them up. Or you get a lot of invasions here too. So it's kind of like one of those situations where he was invaded and I was just kind of sitting idle. So I said, you know what, why not? Right, I can go ahead and get a match in while I'm waiting on good old E-A-B-M and his endurance build. And that's what I'll call it. Some of these guys, they have what you might call the vitality gouge, but I'll just call this the endurance gouge build. Alright, so he's doing a good job evading. He's got the pyromancies going on, so you really have to be careful. Because, I don't know if he's using, wow, that R2 really hurt. I didn't know if he was using the bellowing crest, but even just with a regular pyroblast can hit you upwards of 450. Right? Alright, so another match with good old Consumer82. Alright, grass it up. Let's see what this guy's got to offer. Alright, so he's hitting the boulder with a lot of R2 thrusts. He's also using what a lot of people use, that roll attack, where they just kind of, go, okay, got a roll BS going on. Try to hit me with the great combustion. Alright, and we're back at it. And anytime I see someone casting, I always try my hardest not to stay close to them. Because see, the thing is, you don't know if they're going to throw past you or throw down at your feet. Whereas with the latter, alright, got more BS's going on. Whereas with the latter, especially with that chaos fireball, the lava remnants could really inflict a lot of damage. Right now, I don't know, I'm not really sure if it causes as much damage with the lava remnants as it does with actually getting hit with the fireball. But I do know that either one is dangerous, right? So that's why a lot of times I try not to take a chance against any of those pyrocasters. Right. Alright, so this is basically the last match of the Rumble in the Jungle Volume 2 series. And once again, featuring good old E-A-B-M. Shout out to good old E-A-B-M. I appreciate the fights and meeting up. So, I kind of won't commentate on the last part of this particular video. You guys can go ahead and check it out for yourself. Stay tuned for the next vid. Martyrs Brigade.